Hey guys, it's Angel. Welcome back to the channel, and today we're taking a short flight from this corrugated fence. Now, we're going from Talkeetna, Alaska to Kantishna, which is just north of the Denali range, as I speak English. We're taking the 208 Caravan here. We've got the beautiful Rust's flying service livery on this thing, suitable for Alaska, of course. And why are we here? Well, Orbx released its Alaska mesh, so we're going to see firsthand just how gorgeous this is, flying through one of Alaska's most beautiful ranges, the Denalis. So without further ado, let's get our birds spun up, shall we? As we're around the beautiful K2 aviation ramp here at Talkeetna. God, I want a turbo otter, or a beaver, or a turbo beaver, or a regular otter. Just give me any of those, and I'll be a happy woman. Absolutely happy. Now, I'm still rusty when it comes to turboprops, and I should probably get around to learning them at some point. But I will eventually work out how to do it. So let's get our fuel. That's the wrong one. Make sure our mixture's cut off, of course. Before engine start. See if I can get everything right with this first time. That'll be a miracle. So we have our avionics there. We have starter. We have ignition. So start is to start. Ignition to on. Correct lighting is already enabled. Need this on so I can see my engine systems. Wait for it to go up, then I'll introduce fuel. Where is it? Come on. What am I not doing right here? That's the fuel pump. Won't need that yet.
TOS system test. Okay.
Uh-huh. What do I need to do right here? Oh. So ignition on. Starter on. One of these days I will get around to learning how turboprops actually function. Figure it's going to be one of those important things. I just don't fly enough with them. If someone comes out with the Turbo Beaver Otter though, I promise you I'll learn. Introduce fuel. I'm an idiot, basically. Do we even have a fuel tank selected? Where is the fuel tank selector up here? There they are. Bingo. And now we have an engine start. Okay, cool. That was the important part there. Have fuel actually selected. Who knew? Shouldn't be a long flight for us today. We are going to be following the terrain a little bit because it's going to be our best and most efficient way to get up to Kantishna. That's the one, Kantishna. Is this actually running up? Yes, it is. Okay, we're good to go. Alright, so let's run this back to normal. Close that off. All our systems are engaged here. So, a little quick. I can't see anything in the Caravan, but controls are free and clear. Okay. Let's get ourselves taxied out here. We are going to be taking... Oh, there's the taxiway. So we are taking off today on, I believe it's going to be runway 19. Going over the river, turning northbound. So it should be relatively simple. Hello, people walking across my approach path. I love how busy airports feel with the new sim. This scenery is going to be linked, of course, in the description as always, as will Kantishna. Will also be linked as well. Both freeware sceneries are really good. This is again the Orbx Alaska mesh, so we'll have to see how that actually ends up looking, but just love how busy this place feels. Really adds some spirit to things. Okay. Yeah, I'll turn left here onto taxiway. And we'll just taxi back down to the start there before we head off. Should be about a 30-minute flight, maybe a little bit longer. That's what the GPS tells me. It's usually wrong because we're not necessarily following it. We're following what the terrain lets us do. So the flight plan I've created is basically via some airports along the way, just to give me a reference point of direction I need to generally head in. I'll be following the valley, and as soon as terrain allows us to, we'll be going over and cutting a shortcut to the left to head into Kantishna. Okay. Let's power up, actually use the prop to actually change our speed. If that's how I'm meant to do this. Again, turboprops are never my strong suit. If anybody wants to give me advice in the comment section, please do. Flying the plane I can do. Operating turbos, not so much. Mostly because they never really were that accurate in the previous sim. As my god, this thing turns like a boat. So I never particularly spent the time to learn. Okay, 1-9. Let's get ourselves out of here. What do you say we go flying? Get our speed up here. Caravan's got a lot of performance in it. I just wish we had a version that wasn't the G1000. As much as glass is growing on me, this is still not a plane that I just don't like the G1000 system. Nice and easy. And we'll get our first peek at what the landscape looks like, which around here is disappointingly flat, because Talkeetna. But Orbx's Alaska Mesh should have taken care of a lot of the waterway issues that you've seen around Alaska, with things being incredibly screwy most often the time. So we'll cross the river and then on runway heading, then we'll be turning northbound per the airport's departures. Pull those flaps in now. Nice and simple. Let's pull the power back a touch here. We don't want to overspin the turbine. There we go. So nothing really that looks that different here, but of course you have got a difference in some of the coastlines and layouts of things. Things just a little bit neater in this region so far. Obviously, as we get closer to the actual Denali region, we'll see a bigger difference in terms of how everything looks. So we should also have much more vision once we get out of the sunlight here. Let's get that turned around here. This would likely be in reality just a simple passengers and cargo run in the Caravan. There's the Denali range to our north. Looks gorgeous, of course. But look at this. This is just stunning. The second only to being in Alaska, I think. Nothing comes close. One day I'll visit this place and it will be amazing. So you see ahead of us, up there is where we're heading. And through that gap. So, looks a lot further away than it actually is, but we should be just fine. We're 2,500 feet now, so we'll just continue our en route climb a little bit to about 5,000. Which should give us exactly what we need here in terms of altitude. The pass should be relatively easy, but we always want something in the bag, especially dealing with the Denalis. They are big and they are beastie. Pretty massive range. It's not midway through, but kind of the range of the lower third of Alaska here, which divides the state. So to maintain that climb rate about 800 feet a minute. Get the aircraft behaving itself, and once we're happy with our altitude, we'll trim out. And this is one of those things that I'll be covering when I do more tutorials, is trimming is, yes, partly the trim wheel, but is also throttle. Because once you kind of roughly trim, you can just play with the throttle a little bit to find that sweet point where the aircraft wants to stay level. Because more power equals faster, differential of pressure on the wing caused by the Bernoulli effect increases more lift. More lift equals you go up, you climb. Now, slower, less power. The differential in pressure is lower because less air is going over the wing more slowly. Less lift, you descend. So hence why if right now I pull the throttle back, the nose drops. If I push it forwards, it goes up. After it compensates for the nose now pointing down, it will start to parabola back up again. As you see here, the nose is coming up. And I'm over torquing the engine, so I'll pull that back now. But you combine that with your trim and you'll always have an aircraft that wants to fly exactly where it wants to go. So 3,200 feet here. Okay, aircraft is behaving nicely for us today. So we'll just maintain our current course. It's looking good. Now, do I always pronounce this one incorrectly? That's the question. It's Kantishna. Yes, I was correct. Now, Kantishna has a gravel runway, which is 1,800 feet in length, which should be just fine for what we're needing. 45 feet wide. There are some trees through the side, so we'll have to take into account that. And there's no weather data we're getting from it, so we're kind of going in blind, but we're expecting to land on the southern runway. Or the southern end of the runway, I should say. And of course, we're regional multicom now, 122.9, so we'll have that programmed in just a second. Which is another reason why I'm not a huge fan of the G1000. It annoys me because finding all the buttons, especially with Flight Sim, is a pain in the ass. Which is the one I'm looking for here. That is my nav. I never quite know. Where are you? Is it the nav one? Where is it? Where are my com buttons? It's always the thing that screws me over with the G1000. We've got loads of nav buttons, but nothing for the com. Because that's course and barometric over there. Oh no, that is currently doing that. Okay. So 1 to 2.9 we'll need. Okay, we'll not put that in just yet. We'll hold that in reserve. And we're flying on course here. This will take us up to the mouth of the valley. And I can already see those mountains are looking stunning as we go. Passing through 4,000, we should be pretty set here. Of course, Denali Range is where one of the missions for the in FSX with the mall was located. I loved that one. That was really one of the fun ones. I enjoyed that quite a lot. I wish they'd have released a mall in 2020 default. That would have been an amazing plane to have. I would have loved that. That would have been awesome. But we got the Husky, of course, as a recent edition. And oh my god, the news! We're getting a Junkers J52. Junkers, even. That's so cool. And by the looks of things, racing Mustangs and Texans. For some Reno air racing action, that would be fantastic in multiplayer. And we're looking at a weird little helicopter heli-taxi thing. And so many more. Caravan's bringing out the 337, the Cessna 337. Heck yes! I love that thing. We have the Quest Kodiak coming soon from Simworks. And we have the Twin Otter from Aerosoft. Holy crap, that's going to be exciting. There's some fantastic planes. At least 3 of those I am psyched. No, 4 of those I am super psyched for. Cannot wait. And Milvis is 310, also coming soon. So we're nearly in the territory of some epic aircraft for this sim. Now, Milvis is 310 will be study level, we know that much. The Kodiak, I believe, will be as well. The Caravan one, I don't care. It's a 337. That thing's a beast. Looking at this terrain right now, it's starting to look really exciting. They've got the smoother, more rounded hills here, which is accurate because that's the product of glacial retreat. This sort of landscape you find in the middle of large glacial flows, where these land masses have been created by sediment being dumped, by the ice moving across them as it retreats. So you tend to get these kind of dumpings of material. Of course, there's a glacier up there. Obviously, this is why these mountains are so sharp and so in relief. Is a lot of the time it's because the ice has eroded them away as it's gone through. Normally more recently as well. But this is where big ice sheets would have come through this whole area here. So it's often why you've got this sort of effect and why the water will be running down here. It's the lower part because it's where it's scoured the most. But there's a good chance this stuff was kind of in the middle of the main flow. So we're kind of heading up here now. And from what I can see so far of the Denalis, they are gorgeous. We're going to fly more over to the left over here, left of the river, because we're going to be turning north as soon as altitude lets us. In fact, we're looking to be approaching an altitude where we could actually pass over some of this stuff. So we may do just that and actually proceed direct. In fact, I'm going to reprogram this to allow us to go straight direct to that. Direct to... Where are we at? There we go. We want 5. Zulu. 5. That's the bad boy. Bingo. So we have our route there, which, looking at our numbers at the moment, we're looking at a 20-minute ETA. So we could direct here. We're going to have to climb over some of this mountain region, which I think we'll do, because that'll be really pretty to get through here. So we'll forgo the valley route, which would be the efficient way, perhaps, especially if I was flying something that wasn't a turboprop. We'd fly through the valley areas, and it would be a nice, sedate little run. But it'll take another 30 minutes on top of what we're expecting here. So we'll head north, and we'll cross the Denalis, mostly because I really want to show you guys what the Orbx area looks like and how good it can look. I have very high hopes for this mesh. This will be my first time really seeing it do its thing. And we're better than that, than the Denali range, to see exactly what it can put out. I mean, so far, the sim looks amazing. So these mesh enhancements just really polish what you're seeing. And the LOD distances do look to be impressively fixed. I mean, we've got tree draw out there by about 15-20 miles out, which is pretty good. And it's very dense out there as well. The mountain kind of sharpness is very good from distance as well. We'll have to keep climbing here, going through 5,500 in a moment. We're a little bit low. We're kind of steadily climbing there. We'll just notch up a little bit, trim the nose to a steady climb, and we'll pass through some mountain peaks, get some gorgeous scenery. But let's take a look at this bad boy. Look at this. Oh, that is gorgeous. I love this simulator. It's so stunning. Gorgeous plane, gorgeous livery, and gorgeous environment. Now, these mountain ranges have actually, you typically got better photometry than you'd expect because they're studied a lot as a region, so they're geographically interesting. You'll get satellite passes. That's always an important part. So I think that's actually Denali itself over there. I could be wrong, or it could be one of those. I'm not 100%, but I know the steepest region... Actually, you know what? I probably will be, because the steepest region of the entire mountain chain is right there, so I'm expecting that to be where we're passing through. It should be just left of our track. So I believe that will actually be Denali there. The actual mountain itself. Okay, so we are pretty good in terms of altitude here. This should see us just fine. Take us on a nice, enjoyable little trip over some pretty mountains. Look at this. That is nice. I mean, the terrain in general was great for places like Alaska, but I think the big thing was rivers and elevations, and from what I've seen so far, those are good. Those are fixed now. So you've got no more stupid floating rivers that are humping up the sides of valleys, looking weird. Everything's realistically where it should be. So the data's matching properly now, which is important. Okay. So we are seeing a slight dip in the photometry quality, at least in this part of the area. And this is the downside of photo scenery, is unless you have custom stuff for a certain area because they've had satellite passes, you do get some degradation because sometimes it's from a different period or it's older, and that's just unfortunate. Stay below the cloud here. Let's bring the nose down. But this stuff's sharp. Look at it. Super sharp relief on this terrain. What airspeed are we getting? We're getting about 150 knots or so out of this, and we're climbing, so that's not as bad as it could be. Not fast, but it will do. Although we'll have to go up a slight bit as we approach some of these peaks up ahead of us. And we'll definitely get some choppy air, so that's something we'll have to hold on to. Flying over peaks and flying across ridges means you'll maybe be affected, depending on how close you are, by the variations of the topographic lift. So you've got to be careful with that. Make sure you've got power in reserve. And I'm sitting kind of at a mid-cruise, really, for my climbing right now. So we've actually got plenty in the tank for this Caravan if we need to actually apply full blast and get out of something. That's going to be very high up ahead of me. I'd say at the moment the region's only slightly let down by the textures, but in general they're decent. It's not perfect, but it's not bad. The sharpness and the relief of the mountains is stunning. Look at that. With maybe slightly better photometry, that would just be a sight. That would be almost unbelievably realistic. It is, however, a mile ahead of what FSX and things were, so mustn't grumble. God, that is phenomenal. Wow. Oh, you'd think it was a photograph, wouldn't you? It's views like that that make up for some of these weird moments of photometry go brr. Or photo scenery go brr, I should say. I have heard that some of you are appreciating the Russian test pilot that occasionally pops out during my reviews. Notably during the Yak 18 from Nemeth Designs, but they popped out during the Grob Tutor review as well. And I think I've decided to name her Svetlana, and we'll see what happens next time she raises her Soviet head during the review, and what actually happens from that. So we're getting into some steep stuff now. The glacier there is kind of rising up. In fact, we'll kind of swing off track and we'll follow the glacier as it climbs the mountain, just to see what it looks like, because why not? This is sightseeing. We're in the Denali range. We're in a 208 Caravan with lots and lots of grunt. Let's go look at a glacier. I'd love to see what they've done with it and what the actual mesh does to it. Welcome to Live and Uncut. I will not re-record a script 40 times to get it right and pronounce it correctly. What's a script? Why do I do my stuff this way? Well, I came from an actual background in live content. I still do esports coverage for motor racing, and I've done live motor racing commentary in real life as well before. I did all that before I started YouTube, and I still do it actually on the esports side. It's something that's a passion for me, and because I came from a background in live, I learned to just free flow things. Just to come out with it, say it, and if I make a mistake, either gloss over it or make fun of it. Because you don't get do-overs when you're live. God, look at that. That swath through the landscape is amazing. God. Okay, glacier's ahead of us here. We'll be coming around the corner now. Let's zoom out the map here. What was that I just tweaked? That's the volume. One of these days I should learn how to do this. Okay, so that's our terrain showing up here, so we're not far off track. We're roughly still heading in the correct direction, and if I'm actually correct, we are getting closer, so net value, we get to enjoy a glacier while we're at it. Look at that. How sharp is that? Oh my god. That mesh resolution is amazing. There's no weird, extraneous peaks. Everything looks to be in the right place. Oh boy, that is good. There appear to be trees on top of that one though, which is pretty impressive considering the altitude. But I believe that would be Denali directly ahead of us there. Let's take a look outside. Look at this. Let down slightly by the textures, but oh my god. Only in places. Look at that. That landscape is otherworldly. Okay, so let's not look at that mountain on the left much more. We are going to be coming up here now, so we have to be careful what we're doing because we're heading into dead-end territory. There's a pass ahead of us which we should be able to crest, which is going to be there. That's what I'm aiming for, so I'm going to start climbing now as we pass through 8,000. Let's put some more power on here. Keep it green. Pick the nose up. And if you do think you're going to end up in a dead-end valley and you're not going to make it out, the trick is to recognize it early. And when you're in there, you're in there. You are somewhat committed. So unless you've got room to maneuver, you are committed. If you have room to maneuver, spiraling is always the way forwards. you'll gain the most in terms of your altitude that way, and if you can turn around, turn around. But it's typically dead-end valleys what leads to a lot of CFIT in flying, controlled flight into terrain. So you need to make sure you have got room to maneuver and room to decide, more importantly. And be aware of what you're doing and what altitudes of things there are around you. I have not planned any of this, so I have no idea what these altitudes are, but we'll make it work either way. Look at that. Oh my god. Oh my god. Look at how crispy that is. What? That is so crispy. Oh, it could be real. Oh, that's horrible, but that's surreal. Looks like marzipan. But look at the sharp this is. This is phenomenal. We're plenty fine for altitude here. Not going to play with Denali itself, which is that beast over there. Hooey. But no, the big trick is be aware and prepare. Typically when I go into a dead-end valley, I am aware of my climb ability and distances, so I can typically see pretty early if I'm going to make it out or not, so I'm going to give myself time and know your aircraft and its performance, because if you're flying a piston aircraft that's not turbocharged, you need to be aware of what altitude will do to your engine and how it will degrade your climb performance, because you may know, yes, I can climb at 1,000 feet a minute at sea level. You aren't going to do that at 10,000 feet. You are going to struggle. Even at 5,000 feet, you'll struggle to do the same. But a turboprop is a lot better because, or a turbocharged engine as well, or a jet, you're not restrained by the same conditions because the engine's compressing its own air, which allows it to perform at the same level. Okay, we should crest over this, no problemo. No problemo at all. Disappointing textures. Maybe if someone one day takes better photometry, in fact, maybe every year as these update, this will just get prettier and prettier as better quality satellite imagery gets these areas. But I can forgive it just for how beautifully satiny crispy these mountains are. I mean, this looks just right. Look at that. Now this is the sort of closeness to the terrain I was telling you about in terms of being cautious, because you can get into trouble, and we'll have a glacier to fly down here. Got a peak just below the engine nacelle there. Or the cowling at least. Nacelles are when they're on the wing. So we have the actual route of the glacier down here. This is where the snow buildup is happening. You'll see those rips and tears. That's where it's starting to actually break down and move down as more materials added from the snow and from the mountains. It starts to build up to a kind of a critical point, and then it starts to slip downwards. And that's where you start to get this routing here. So you'll notice this bowl of creation. I'm going to try and simplify the terminology here. But this is the origin point. Think of it like the nail root of a toenail. This is where it starts to come out and it starts to really build up. But it's like piling sand into a heap. As you pile it, it starts to slip and break, chunks break off and start to move down. And that's where it starts to flow, and you get these sections where it starts to go down the actual mountains of gravity. You'll have subflows that come off from different sides, and you'll get avalanches feeding them, and it packs and packs and packs. Those are most likely outflow from recent avalanches that have happened in this area. We know the Denali region's pretty active for it. As you see here, many subflows feeding into another portion here, another tributary. And glaciers are very similar to rivers in that regard. They are fed by tributaries. You'll get features like that down there, surface lakes building upon them. And what you'll see at the side of them here, this is dirt and material. A lot of this is actually on the surface. It's not the actual dirt at the sides. Now you'll get what are lateral moraines, which are banks of material scraped up and pushed up along the sides. But a lot of this stuff you can actually see here is actually on the surface. It's slid down the mountain sides, it's come down with the snowfall, and it's riding on top. So that's how that tends to work, and you'll see as it moves further down, it ends up more and more of it on top. But you'll see that spread out as it goes, and there's no end to a glacier around here, I don't think, so I can't show you a terminal moraine. But glaciers are phenomenally exciting. I remember on one field trip I ended up sinking up to my thighs in a peat bog whilst measuring glacial features in a former bowl, just like that one back up there, another origin point to a glacier, one that had completely melted away during this last ice age on Earth, the Hibernian, and was able to study the features and how high it had been. So think of it like forensics for glaciers. We looked at where we were finding the lateral features up the actual mountainside to determine the highest point the ice had been at. So from that we could tell how big the glacier had been and how much it had affected and where it flowed, because by how high it had gotten we could tell by the general structure and behaviour of glaciers how far it had gone. And you'll often see features like this here, where you see how it's carved down. This was at one point a bigger mountain, but as the glacier has wound down, you'll notice it's cut down into this. But you'll see also in sections like here, it's building up its own walls. Those are the terminal moraines that or the lateral moraines it's pushing up at the sides and forming its own barriers in a way to keep itself moving. As it pushes material to the sides, it ends up over there. And you'll see it terminating somewhere down here actually, so that's where we'd get our kind of terminal features, as this has become a geography class rather than a flight sim adventure. So geography with Avangel, do enjoy. Now we're bringing ourselves on course here and starting our descent, so we'll pull the power back and we can basically just kick this thing nose down and we should be arriving very soon. We're about 5 minutes out from our destination of I can't pronounce it, I keep mispronouncing it every single time. Kantishna. There we go. So like I said, we're looking at runway 10 and 28. So we'll most likely be taking 28 in the current conditions. Okay. We're on direct course here, and I believe, looking at this, we are... Where are we? I can't read that from that distance. Okay, we're about 6 minutes out. 17 nautical miles on a course of 317. So we're basically slap on course here. Descending at cruise speed, but basically idle throttle, because we need to get down in a hurry here. Now, we should just be across that river, from what I'm looking at here. We'll have a lot of river, because most of this stuff's flowing out from the glaciers we were just flying over, so that should give us a lot of material to go past. So we're looking for the foothills as it builds up just across there, so it's going to be in this region here for us. Okay. I must say, the actual terrain pack from Orbx is $15. That is pennies. And my god, the impact it has. I've not seen a watercourse yet that was wrong, which has been a huge relief and a huge improvement, because it seemed often like Flight Sim never cared about these regions, both in X, P3D and 2020. And I'm going to still call it MSFS 2020, because guess what? It came out in 2020 and I'm differentiating it from every other Flight Sim. Just like people called FSX FS10, because they were weird. Okay, so 4 minutes or so out now. Pick up to cruise power now. We're descending down here a bit. Although we are still quite high up, we need to descend further. "13 nautical miles out. Should get the airport in sight soon. Although actually I believe it will be on the far side of this lump ahead of us, so we'll likely overfly and then come downwind for 28. So our expected routine. Look at that. Even just looking out the window here, it looks so realistic. God, what an improvement over the past. There's still bits it could fix, but my god, when they fix those bits, you'll be hard pressed to tell it's not real life. For VFR flight, this simulator is the doggies danglers, to be polite. And I do like to be polite, okay? Sue me. Okay, coming through 4,000. Now our airport altitude here is 1,500 feet. Switch that over there. I didn't call out as we left the airport, but at the same time, no one's listening because there's no one really there. And I'm just enjoying a nice relaxing flight with you, my wonderful viewers. And it's multicom, nobody be out here. We'll call out because habit tells me I should. Okay, 9 miles out. So we're just going to be the far side of this lump ahead of us. Look at that. Gorgeous. And the biggest thing is the edges of the waterways that are so much more natural. It really kind of just broke it away from FSX's strange straight coastlines of things. Don't get me wrong, FSX was phenomenal for what it did and gave to us, but I remember fighting with that game for over a decade. Hell, nearly 15 years I fought that game in terms of making it run properly. Because FSX was designed for single-core computers, because back then when it came out in 2006, they thought computers were going to just get bigger single cores. You know, we'd end up with 8, 9, 10 gigahertz processors, which FSX would have run beautifully on, because it was all designed to run on one core. The SP1 patch took 1 or 2 bits off onto the cores, but not much. So in general, the whole thing has been hobbling along because cores got smaller. You just got more of them, which most other stuff, more modern software, was able to work with. FSX at its core was never designed to be that. Alright, coming over terrain here. Let's keep our eyes wide open. So I'm thinking right now with where we are, we're going to have to descend pretty quickly. I think we may be just over this terrain to our front here as we drop down. Because we're at 4,200 and the airport elevation is 1,500, so we need to be prepared for a bit of a descent. This is all post-glacial terrain. You've got these small lakes and things where boulders and chunks of ice have been. And a lot of why these lakes exist is literally because as the glaciers melted, larger, more dense chunks of ice melted more slowly, and they sank into the terrain, these huge, very heavy lumps of ice, and melted in situ. So you end up with this pockmarked landscape of little lakes that initially were created by big chunks of ice. And you get features like that, these humps, as the glacier has receded over them and actually left this mountain of debris that it's scooped. Okay, so yeah, we are heading just over this crest here, so we'll drop down into this valley between these two crests and we'll make our approach, and the river is going to be our reference point. Airport should be on the zoom in on El Garmin or Piloto, south side of the river. So we're going to be looking for runway 28 on the south side. So we'll have to join overhead and enter into the crosswind and hit our runway. We could shoot a straight in, but no one does that. We're not an airliner. We're not doing a straight in approach here. So we'll drop down here. Need to scrub off a lot of this altitude very quickly. In fact, holy crap, that's going to be it. So, traffic pattern's going to be interesting here. Kantishna traffic, Cessna November 403 Sierra X-ray, inbound for landing runway 28. No sounds early traffic. 03 Sierra X-ray, Kantishna traffic, doing a 360 for a straight-in final, runway 28. There's no way I can fly a circuit here. Not practical. Terrain's too high either side, so we're going to have to shoot this one straight. Which means kissing the side of this terrain here as we try and work out what we're doing. Let's get the aircraft prepared for landing. Condition and prop are full forward.
500.
Flaps notch 1. Everything is secured. Correct lighting is on. Okay, dropping it down over the river here. God, this looks so real. Look at this. Field in sight. Kantishna traffic, 03 Sierra X-ray, final 28 to land. This looks so real. Look at this. My god. Apart from that bit, that looks a little bit weird, but in general, god, the terrain mesh just takes this to 11. Look at this. My god. Look at it. I sound like an idiot. But this is genuinely blowing me away. Okay, let's bring the speed down.
500.
Flaps 2. There's the small town at the end of the runway. We'll be stopping off at the tavern after we land to grab ourselves a cold one. After our lovely flight through the range there. Nice, steady approach, stabilized final. Tow brakes were ready. Ooh, that came up quicker than I thought it would. That came up a little bit quicker than I thought it would. I was not expecting that to be quite so sudden. I got my depth perception wrong there. I was expecting this to be a little bit further off, and this is weird because this I don't think is the actual standard scenery. Well, this is the standard scenery, but it's not the add-on scenery. Let's get ourselves turned around here. No, I made a mistake there. I landed without flaring. I was spatially disorientated because I was expecting the runway to be a little bit further away, and this is definitely not the correct scenery. I had an add-on for this area. This looks like stock. And it is very undulating. Yeah, I was too busy looking at how the runway was going up and down, and I was focused on it being an undulating runway, which is information I would have gotten ahead of time from my flight planning, if I'd done a real one. So I was too busy focusing on, oh, this runway's going up and down, to correct my approach. Also, this is way narrower than 45 friggin' feet. So, with it being quite a smooth texture, I thought, this is going to be wider when I land on it. I'm further away. So, made a bit of a mistake there in my judgment. So the undulating runway, which I was not prepared for, along with it being much, much more narrower visually than it should be. So that threw me off. And this is weirdly the stock scenery, which is really sad, as I had a gorgeous one I'm pretty sure I installed. Unless I am very stupid, but even that, with the little town there, is so pretty. Let's go take a look at that, actually. Ugh, rotating camera, go potato. Yeah, because that looks like it's much wider when you're coming down. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh wait, no, it's actually stupidly narrow, it's just there. So that's a bit of an MSFS runway small moment. Not sure what all this red is. Is that staining? It could be a photographic error. Or it could be staining from something in the hills there. I don't know, but look at this little town. It's so pretty. Granted, now I realise this is probably standard buildings, the standard stuff, and it looks to be that way, yes. But that's such a cute little town. Look at that. I mean, everything's exactly where it should be, in theory. I'm pretty sure those aren't the buildings that are here, but the actual pattern underneath it looks to be exactly like that, so maybe there was a mine out here or something, because that looks to be that sort of era of building. Which would explain runoff leading to the staining of the water on that little tributary. Huh. That is nice. Well, folks, thank you very much for joining me here on our wonderful little flight to Kantishna here in Alaska. I've had a great time. Hopefully you have too, and you learned something about glaciers. I tried to do what most of my academic friends do not, and I deleted every academic nuanced term other than the necessary from my vocabulary, so it was understandable. Because I know I have in the past, and as do some of my friends, have a tendency to jargonify the crap out of things and explanations, so hopefully you learned a little something about glaciers and about... Hopefully we all had a little educational moment about my mistake on landing there and why that happened. Because if we can't learn, why do we fly? Folks, thank you very much for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, please consider subscribing to the channel and or liking the video, or both, preferable. And hit the notification bell if you want to see more videos like this and my reviews. It really helps out the channel and helps more people see it too. So, thank you for watching and we'll see you next time. Bye!